Hello, my name is Hannah McIntosh. This is my personal leadership development plan. And yeah, I really enjoyed taking this class this semester, but here is my leadership plan. So most of my experiences with leadership have has to deal with leaders that I've worked under, as I haven't really been in an official leadership role, so to speak. So it's from the time I was 15, I've had multiple jobs, working in food service, retail. I worked on campus in the peer mentoring office whenever I did my undergrad degree, worked as a bartender, production associate, and now I'm currently a graphic designer. In all of these different industries and different ages of working. I have worked alongside and under many different types of leaders, and the types of leaders in food service and retail are going to be different than your on-campus leadership and your more corporate leadership versus bartending. So someone that owns, I worked at a winery, so like the leadership styles vary drastically. I generally speaking, have not had great leadership, period. In food service, there was a lot of micromanaging and very not so great work environments. When I was a peer mentor coordinator, I did have a little bit of leadership experience as I was overseeing peer relationships between like proteges and their mentors. And it was nice to just be a familiar face on campus, a support person, open communication, finding answers to questions that they might have that they didn't know the answer to or couldn't figure out. And it was, I really enjoyed it. Out of all of my jobs, that might have been my favorite. Um, and currently in my current role, leadership is a bit iffy. I feel like it's like that in any corporate environment, but I will say between being a production associate and a graphic designer with the same company, even though there's logistical differences, I would say that this is my best um, form of leadership that I've worked under. I have a manager who is very, um, what's it called? She's very like accepting and like open and like she's very easy to talk to. I don't ever really have to worry about her like watching down my back or anything like that. And that's what I'm after in myself for being a leader. I don't want to be who I talked about under like food service and retail and them not being good leaders, not being good role models or anything like that. So yeah. So with all of that, and what I've experienced since the age of 15, my core leadership values are respect. It is point blank the most important thing to me is respect. And second is honesty. In my current role, there is a lot of issues with honesty and trust, and I would prefer if that didn't exist. So for myself, like that is one of the biggest things that I value is honesty. Same with kindness. Like, it's not that hard to be kind. I think that valuing others for who they are and going along with equity, like, it is extremely important for everyone to be included, for everyone to have to be able to put their best foot forward and show compassion, inspire. Like, this is the biggest thing I want to do as a leader in design is I want to be able to inspire. I want to work in a collaborative setting. I want to boost engagement with team members, myself included. Um, Being an empath has its benefits and its weaknesses, but I genuinely think that empathy is huge in a leadership role, especially helpfulness, along with helpfulness, power to an extent, to show that you're in charge, but not overpowering or creating that discrepancy between like a power dynamic, like the leader is in power and you have to do everything that they say. Like no power discrepancies. So along with power, you have to stay humble, but you also have to stay sharp. No one wants a leader that doesn't know what they're doing or is so detached from the team or the mission. It just doesn't work. And I value all of these greatly. So, thinking about my own leadership plan based off of all of my previous experiences, I've kind of realized where I'm lacking, or what could help me be a better leader for myself before leading a team. So kind of thinking about where I am right now. I'm low enough on the chain of command where I have two reports and no one reports to me. So I figured this is the best time to start to evolve my personal leadership, so that whenever an opportunity presents itself, that I can move along and then I'm set. So my first goal is to create better working relationships. So naturally, I'm an oversharer and overly empathetic person. So that can lead to my working relationships not necessarily maintaining like as professional as it should. And it sounds bad, but it really is just I work on a team of all women. It's a more comfortable space. People, we all discuss different aspects of our lives with different team members. And recently, I've learned that at work, I don't need to share. I don't need to share as much. So I think that this kind of also blurs the lines between a professional and personal relationships. It can have team members misconstrue whether or not it's an office friendship or like a friendship, for example. So to go about this, I want to limit my oversharing about life without a lesson. So unless it has to do specifically with work or a project we're working on or whatever, I don't feel that it's important for me to share personal attributes about my life. Um, Sometimes things can get too personal and the working relationship gets murky. So it's important to set the boundary unless it absolutely makes sense to add to a conversation. And that's kind of where I am with that. And I've actually already started implementing that now. Another way to go about this would be to start researching ways to maintain a healthy working relationship because it ebbs and flows naturally. So, one way I'll be doing this is I'm going to begin reading Managing Relationships at Work, Building Effective and Healthy Working Relationships by Gerard Essey. So, I want to learn as much as possible about maintaining and implementing boundaries to implement into a leadership focus, which will benefit me personally and professionally. So, I want to find like 2 to 3 real world examples weekly. Reading this book should present useful insight on working relationships and challenges that may arise in the workplace with team members. So I'm very much so looking forward to starting to get more into this. Timeline for this is they can both be started immediately and are to be reevaluated during like a once a week blocked off personal meeting. So I'm going to set time aside for myself on my work calendar. Yes, I'm doing this on the clock. Um, to give myself like a half an hour once a week, to just reflect off of my goals and my actions. I also aim to finish the book in 2 to 3 weeks and then write a self-reflection entry to review my findings from the book. So, my second goal is to stand on my beliefs, always, point blank. I want to start by saying like this that I stand on my beliefs regardless of who I am interacting with. However, in certain situations, I struggle with not speaking up because there could be pushback, and I let the intimidation get the best of me. And to me, that's not that's not how a leader should be. So the best way that I can put this is that sometimes my beliefs are shared, the strongest part of my the strongest to myself, and I need to be better about broadcasting them in hopes of inspiration. Um, I feel so strongly about this because this is what I needed whenever I was growing up. Someone who was very open, um, and standing strongly and proudly for what they believe in, would have greatly helped me in my most influential years. So, the actions for goal number two is to speak up at any chance that I get. And it seems so simple, yet I'm sitting here and it's so daunting. I feel that this is extremely important to chime in or speak on about anything that I feel any bit strongly about, just to gather the courage and get introduced to the action of voicing my thoughts and opinions. I want to start tracking with like a tally system of when or how many times a week I speak up during a week's time. So whether that is in my weekly one-on-one with my direct report or my monthly one-on-one with my upper management or during our weekly team meeting, if I want to start kind of stepping out of that box a little bit. Followers need a leader who exude confidence and don't back down on important matters, especially if they mean a lot to those who look up to the leader. And I never want to go back on my word or beliefs. So the second action item is to be more open. And this seems so silly and contradictory because of the first goal, where I talk about keeping the personal things private, but this is different. I feel like, especially today, in today's society, it is especially important to know who you're looking up to, especially where they stand morally. But how do you do this without giving too much of yourself away? I think there's a big difference between using personal matters in a professional setting, unless, like, without a lesson, versus opening up about how inclusivity plays a major role in leadership development. A big goal of mine is to be as inclusive and inspiring of a leader as possible. And without standing on moral business, I don't think that it's possible to be truly inclusive. I have been excluded on multiple accounts, not in the standard way of how we picture like inclusivity. And I know that that's awful. It is not enjoyable whatsoever, and I would never want to make another person feel that way, especially in a leadership position. So I need to focus on being more open, but in a mindful way. So, timeline for this is both actions can be started immediately and are to be reevaluated after about 2 to 3 weeks to see progress, but I would like to do like a 6 month check-in with myself just to see how confidence boosts and how open I can get, in my current role professionally and personally, even with being in the MFA program. So questions for goal one is like, where am I going wrong in my working relationships now? Will I be the only one to see the benefit? Will I seem cold or distant after setting the boundaries? Where exactly will the line be drawn? How can I work in a lesson without making it seem like everything's about me? And how to avoid falling back into where I am now. So, as I was writing these, it really did get me thinking. I feel very I feel very good in my goals and my actions, and I look forward to actually implementing them. And for my second goal, the questions I have are, will this lose me opportunities? How can I do this without offending anyone? How do I do this without being too personal? And again, where exactly will the line be drawn? I think that all of these questions for both goals are extremely important and things to think about as I'm doing my personal reflection and meetups with myself weekly, and then the 6 month meetup. I think it's extremely important to kind of keep these things in the back of my mind, just to one, keep me going, and two, kind of keep me in line because I do get a little bit out there sometimes. But that is everything that I have for my leadership development plan, and thank you for listening.